This is the Heated Madness Blueprint, the reward of a Build-A-Blueprint style Easter egg quest, and today we're going to run down how you can unlock it. Season 3 Reloaded provided a surprising amount of things to do, and I don't mean that in the way of like new maps to play on, new weapons to rank up, but instead like side quests and longevity tasks like camo unlocks and blueprints like this. Across Season 3 Reloaded, we've seen the introduction of the Trophy Hunt camo challenges, which are much easier than the Path of the Ronin challenges in my opinion. Finished those out last night. We had a new really cool looking camo for the raid reward completed on Veteran. We have another hidden camo available via Easter egg in the raid, and this one I think is the coolest looking one. Certainly one of the most out there looking blueprints that we've seen added thus far, but this being accessible via DMZ and the new Koschei complex. Today we're running down how to complete this Easter egg quest line where it's not a one and done completion reward, but instead it's a multi-step process. So in this we'll run down locations, strats, best overall methods to doing it, and everything that can help you out unlock the Heated Madness Blueprint. As we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Do you like this blueprint? Think you'll go for it? Like that we have a handful of decent things to grind out across all modes this update so far? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare 2 and a bunch of guides still on the way. And finally, check out my friends over at G Fuel with code Espresso for 30% off certain items in the month of May, 20% off all items all the time, but more on that later. For now, let's jump into it. So the Heated Madness Blueprint, this is for the Kastov 762 and comes along with the SZ Recharge DX Optic, the IG K30 406 barrel, the Sock and Tread 40 muzzle, the Edge 47 grip, and the 40 round mag. Honestly, the build itself isn't half bad by comparison to some pre-made builds that we've seen in the past when it comes to blueprint rewards, but what makes this different is that you can get these via attachments individually. You don't have to unlock the full thing, but you can instead unlock and equip any of the attachment variants at any time and use them on builds via the attachment skins in the gunsmith. But to unlock the whole blueprint, you need to unlock all 5 attachments. So how do you do that? Let's start with the attachment locations. This is a basic rundown here. We'll jump into the specifics in just a second, but the optic in the magazine can be found in the relatively air quote simple areas near their respective spawn points, with the optic being found at the end of the water maze in the barracks section of Koschei complex. That location in your spawn point if you enter the north of Al Mazrah City. We'll go into more detail again in a second, but just to name out where you can find these. The magazine is found at the end of a series of irradiated bunkers inside the Defense Research Division, tasking you with shutting off valves and closing bunkers to be able to go in safely and traverse the area. The barrel is found in the central area of the complex, that being the chemical plant, and a few randomly rotating spawn points accessible by simply just looting around the ground in the plant. The underbarrel is found in a hidden room of the Alpha cluster that's accessible once hacking the data center's servers, and the muzzle is found in another secret room inside the Alpha cluster after finding the sub-bunker's code sequence hidden within scribbles on blackboards using the rad detector tactical to see hidden heat signatures. Now that's a top-down look at where they are, but every single place is linked in the Koschei complex. For a little bit of basic map geography here before we get started, because that is important to know, the map is set up almost as you could think of it in a circle, where there's a ring of bunkers surrounding the chemical plant that if you want to go to a different bunker, just hug the walls in the chemical plant, you can work your way around them. Each bunker spawn point is on the outermost portion of those entire complexes and the map itself, working your way through those bunkers by your spawns, then being able to get into the center, that being the chemical plant. Now, one nice detail before we dive into the more specifics of how to unlock each piece here is that when going for these unlocks, you do not have to do this multiple times so that every teammate has to extract with the attachment. Extracting with the weapon attachment credits the whole squad with that earned piece. So if you wanted to, you could divide and conquer and then perhaps do this all in one game, though honestly, good luck because it's kind of an in-depth thing and may prove to be a bit much to do in one game, especially if there's opposition you run into in the complex. But anyways, let's dive into how this is obtained in full detail. First, let's start out with the optic. Let's start with the easier ones here. The optic for this, you're going to want to enter the barracks of Koschei complex, accessible by the spawn point near the river under the bridge just northwest of Al Mazrah City. Once in, the barracks are flooded and you'll have to traverse the hallways to get topside, which it's pretty straightforward from there. You just might have to make a few turns. But this swimming part isn't really too challenging. You can just turn around. There's no real consequence to it. You can come up for air at any point. But once topside, though, you'll enter into a service corridor that's lined with traps and AI, but you're not focused on any of that. Instead, you want to focus on the boarded up hole in the wall on the southwestern portion of that tunnel. From there, any explosive will do, frag grenade, semtex, drill charge, something to blow that open, and once you do, make your way into it. This will take you to a semi-submerged tunnel that lowers into a completely submerged hallway, but After this, you want to game plan it out because that optic is at the end of that entirely submerged hallway. If you have a rebreather, use it, you'll have zero issues whatsoever. But if you don't, because not everybody usually exfils with those, you want to have a teammate at the ready for a revive. There's two stretches here to this hallway, separated by a doorway, and the entire hall section is submerged, so there's nowhere to come up for air. I'd suggest going in, opening the door at that midway point, turning around and regaining your oxygen levels, and then going all the way back in, speed run from one side to the other, into that ending room. Once you come to the dead end there on the left side corner of that final room, you'll see there is the optic. Pick it up and make your way back as fast as possible. Now, it is very possible that you do end up dying by doing so, running out of oxygen and ending up drowning. But if you do this without any interruption and you just simply beeline it for that attachment, you'll likely die right by the steps where your teammates can then revive you, and the only thing you'll likely lose is your armor, but you're golden on everything else. After that, extract, and that's your first piece of the puzzle. The magazine, first, you want to make sure you end up entering the complex through the Oasis entryway, a new built-up POI that's unmarked in Al-Mazrah with the Season 3 Reloaded update. You're going to want to find your way to, as my squad put it, the Stinky Room in Oasis, which will transport you to the complex. This spawn point will guarantee you to be in the Defense Research Division. This one's pretty straightforward from here. Inside, there are 3 sections of bunkers, each separated by doors and consoles where you have to close the bunkers, spewing radioactive material. You can do it properly and close the bunkers by using the working buttons in the control rooms of each, and if the buttons are broken, you have to shut off the valves inside the bunker itself. But if you have a durable gas mask, you have radiation blockers, you can kind of speed run through this to where ultimately the magazine will be in the final bunker's first bunker room to the right. Once you pick that up, again, just exfil and there's another piece down. Now this is where we start to get into where it's a little bit harder, pieces 3, 4, and 5. Firstly, from here on out for the next 3, you're going to need at least 2 main components here just for simply being able to access the other parts of Koschei complex. Firstly, a car battery and jumper cables. This is something that will allow you to gain access to the chemical plant. Once you end up going into the end of your bunker, you can enter into that middle portion of the overall complex once again, but you have to kind of craft power to open up that bunker to enter into the center. But once you do, you'll gain access to the chemical plant, again, the outside portion and what feels like that giant center of the map, but it's honestly pretty disorienting, so it might not be center at all, but it's a maze in there. But the barrel will randomly spawn in the center of the chemical plant. Now, it is outside at this point, so NVGs or flashlights on weapons is a tremendous help. Otherwise, you're kind of just traversing the dark. If you can find NVGs, definitely pick those up because those are 100 times better than a flashlight. But the chemical plant, being that it is outside at night, just make sure you have one of those because it makes the experience actually bearable. If you want to traverse the map, staying to the left or rightmost walls will end up helping you easily traverse the areas of the Koschei complex. You'll run into other bunkers you can just simply open up that you don't need power for. There is one that you do need, but that's for the next 2 attachments. Now, if correct, unfortunately, this seems to be a random spawn point for the barrel, so it's not something that is just a guaranteed spawn point you can write down. I've gotten it a couple of different locations. Consistently, I've found it near the center rubble and the crawl spaces, but again, multiple spawn points. So maybe I got lucky to see those more consistently, but you might have to just explore a little bit, but it will be there in plain view. Do be cautious though, there are armored AI roaming the patrols and potentially other players as well. Now the next 2, these are the toughest ones and require a genuine quest line or sort of task of sorts for players to complete. The Underbarrel, this I'd say is the easier of the 2. This one just requires you to do a bit of scavenging in addition to the standard car battery and jumper cables to traverse the complex by gaining access to that center chemical plant. And then on top of that, you're going to need to access another sort of locked off bunker, that being the Alpha Cluster. To do this, you'll need an additional car battery and jumper cable to rig up power to that Alpha Cluster. This sub bunker where it's remnants of the Cold War and a massive data center now controlled by the cartels and AQ. But besides those 2 car batteries and 2 jumper cables to power up both major bunker doors, you'll need to find 3 AQ laptops. Regular laptops, I'm unsure if they work, but I'm assuming they won't. But these 3 laptops will be used to hack the server in the Alpha Cluster at these sort of terminals around this bunker. These are best to find at your entry point, whatever spawn point you end up coming into. There should be a decent number of them, but you also might not be able to always get 3 in that main spawn point. in which if you do, you'll have to venture out into other areas to find additional ones because you need 3 to make this work. So you have your 3 laptops. You have Alpha Cluster powered and opened up. Here you'll end up seeing a ton of AI that you'll want to clear out, but then you're looking for the large central pillars with the catwalks on them. Go over to them and you'll be prompted with the Connect AQ laptop, and this will then take a bit longer instead of just tapping to interact with it. But once you have all 3 connected, you'll get the server hacked notification and you'll be able to unlock the muzzle. That is then found in the previously locked room in the northwesternmost portion of the Alpha Cluster, where you'll have to jump up onto some scaffolding and then activate a door, open it up, find that grip, and then extract with that. Once extracted, that's another piece down, 1 to go. The final, the muzzle, this might be the toughest one yet. So you're going to need, again, those 2 batteries, 2 jumper cables to get out of your spawn point, get into chemical plant, and then into Alpha Cluster. But beyond that, you're also going to need to pick up a new device called the rad detector, or R4D detector. This tool will show heat signatures on items, which is imperative to the unlocking method of the final attachment here. The rad detector is found as a guaranteed spawn point inside one of the central buildings in the chemical plant. Should be there every single time, so just make your way to it, pick it up, and then head on over to the Alpha Cluster. And once you have that rad detector, you're in Alpha Cluster, you want to head to the southernmost wall where you'll end up seeing a long hallway of terminals, locked doors with a central bunker door, and a keypad. Once there, take out the rad detector and look through it right above the keypad for that bunker. You'll see 3 symbols consisting of Cyrillic letters and sometimes just random symbols, but that's your key. You want to keep those in mind here because you're looking for those on 3 additional blackboards around Alpha Cluster. You're going to have 1 blackboard per wall on the other 3 walls on the sort of rectangular shape of Alpha Cluster. From there, it gets kind of tricky because you're going to want to hold up that rad detector to the blackboards, and you'll see it like jumbled mess of scribbling of madmen seemingly, but once you find the symbol that you were looking for, there's going to be 1 per blackboard of that key on each individual blackboard. Once you find that though, you're going to see that it's circled and pointing to a number. That's your code sequence number for that specific blackboard. Do that for all 3 blackboards and you'll end up getting your code, and from there you can end up inputting it into the keypad by the bunker. Now, one thing to note that is incredibly important is this changes every single game. So it's not going to be like who's the first one there and can input the code type of race. You have to do this legitimately each time that you're attempting it. But once you end up getting that code complete, you can enter into that bunker, and again, there's a bunch of loot in there, plus also that final piece to the puzzle, the muzzle, where all you have to do is extract, and then there you'll have it. You'll unlock the blueprint for the Heated Madness. So honestly, it's definitely a quest. It's something that takes a bit more time than you might be willing to put into for just 1 singular blueprint. But I think the thing looks pretty good, and as someone that loves to do these sort of quest lines, I loved this one. Now, that said, as for some general tips to note, if you're doing this, do it now or do it in like a few weeks' time, because once word gets out, I think everyone's going to try and do this. So just like when there's a new point of interest in Warzone or something like that, everybody flocks to that area, and it might be a bit too over contested, might be a bit too stressful to try and do this while everybody else is. Once word gets out, I think everybody's going to be going for this. Our squad was lucky enough that at like 4:30 a.m. last night when we completed it, we were one of the first people to unlock it. The first I saw was my buddy Incredilag, but we had the element of sort of no one knows what to do or what's going on our side. I feel like when we were doing it, a lot of people didn't even realize that Koschei Complex was actually available at that point. I really ran into like maybe 2 to 3 teams in like 3 hours of working on this. So it's bound to get much hotter, much more irritating here soon. So either do it now before the rush of people or after the rush of people in a couple of weeks likely. Beyond that, one question that myself and my friend Immortal, who you may know, the question we had was, could you extract with this blueprint simply like you could with a base weapon in DMZ so that you could do it, but your friend might not have to and they could still get the blueprint? Short answer, unfortunately, no. You have to do the overall Easter egg to end up earning this blueprint. It does not transfer from account to account by simply just extracting with it in DMZ as a sort of much simpler method. Now, that said, overall thoughts here on this, I kind of like the novelty of this. Like, it's a weapon case challenge set, but only working towards one weapon itself. You don't get any filler items like a weapon charm or a loading screen or an emblem or something like that. But at the same time, I don't know if I'd want to do this a ton of times, like every single season. I think it's a very cool way to introduce something in a new way that we haven't seen just yet, but it is definitely super tedious, sometimes annoying. So is it worth it? that's subjective. That's where it comes into if you think it's worth it and if you want to go for it. So that's where I'll leave you. So that said, that is a full guide here on how to unlock the Heated Madness exclusive and sort of secret blueprint for DMZ and the Cast-Off 762. So that's what we're going to call it. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think is a blueprint? Do you like it? Will you be going for it? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. Before we wrap everything up though, make sure you check out my friends over at G Fuel. Code Espresso get you 30% off certain items for the month of May, like even starter kits right now. So if you guys have not ever had any G Fuel, now's a great time to do it at a discounted price. So if you guys want to check that out, and with Code Espresso, if you want anything else not on that exclusive items list, you can end up getting 20% off your entire order all the time. But that said, check that out, link in the description below. For now though, that's what we're going to call it. So let me know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay updated with all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2, and anything else Season 3 related. We got a couple of more guides, a couple of more tutorials, and other stuff here covering Season 3 Reloaded upcoming. So I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.